Hamilton almost ended his biggest rival's career, Vettel completely lost it with his teammate at Red Bull. These are the moments when F1 teammates crashed into each other. Let's start with the guy who made Lewis Hamilton lose his cool. We're talking about Nico Rosberg, and because of this rivalry, he went down in Formula 1 history in the worst way possible. These two actually knew each other from back when they were karting, and people say they competed over everything. In the 2013 season, they met again when Hamilton left McLaren and joined Mercedes, where Nico was already racing. But the first sign of tension between them came quickly, and the villain in this story is someone you'd never expect. At the 2013 Malaysian Grand Prix, the first controversy happened when Mercedes ordered Rosberg to stay behind Hamilton in 4th place. At the time, Hamilton actually defended Nico, saying he deserved the podium. But Mercedes, they kept adding fuel to the fire. But everything changed at the 2014 Bahrain GP. The two battled wheel to wheel for the entire race and barely avoided contact.
Forced off the track by his teammate Nico Rosberg, but there was no contact made, and it's Hamilton that leads. Rosberg against Hamilton. Hamilton fights back. Rosberg has to concede the lead.
It was one of the best races of the year.
To keep hold of the lead looks to me like it does. Go towards the outside of the track. Hamilton is pushed.
Including this beautiful switchback move by Hamilton just 5 laps before the checkered flag.
But he's going to go for it down the inside. Has he outbraked himself? Yes, he has. Lewis Hamilton comes back.
But again, this wasn't just a fight between two drivers. In Parc Fermé, they did a simulated race, which Rosberg won. Shortly after, the bomb dropped. Rosberg had used unauthorized engine modes from Mercedes in the final laps, giving him more power to try to beat Hamilton. And it didn't stop there. Hamilton found out the team had prepared a full data file on his performance and gave it to Rosberg to study before the race. A true manual on how to beat him. That stuck in Hamilton's throat, and at the 2014 Spanish GP, he got his revenge. The Brit had a golden chance. If he won, he'd pass Rosberg in the championship. And that's exactly what he did, but in a completely unsportsmanlike way. Rosberg pushed until the very end, but just couldn't get by. And after the race, an unofficial source revealed Hamilton had used the same engine mode Rosberg had used in Bahrain, the one the team didn't allow. The internal fight was heating up more and more, and Mercedes management just kept stoking the flames. At the 2014 Hungarian GP, they told Hamilton to let Rosberg pass since the German still had one more pit stop to make. But Hamilton refused.
I'm not slowing down for Nico. And overtake. Why is he not letting me through?
The result? Hamilton held his position, finished 3rd, and Rosberg was stuck behind him until the very end.
He's forced off the track by Lewis Hamilton. Daniel Ricciardo now comes to take the checkered flag and win for a 2nd time in Formula 1.
Up until that point, Hamilton had always come out on top, even winning 2 championships. But the peak of this rivalry came in the 2016 season, when Nico finally beat Hamilton.
Nico Rosberg wins the Mexican Grand Prix. It is 3 in a row for Nico. He ends the season on a high.
Mercedes was dominating. Hamilton and his teammate were fighting every race for the top spot in the championship. And in Spain, the worst happened.
Here we go, and it's Nico Rosberg, and Hamilton's onto the grass, and Hamilton's had a massive crash, and he's crashed into his teammate.
As soon as they got to turn 3, you could feel something bad was about to happen. That crash is more than just iconic, especially because of the behind-the-scenes stories. At that exact moment, Rosberg had the wrong engine mode selected, which was limiting his car's speed.
I was in the incorrect engine setting, so I was down in power. So Lewis closed in, and I saw him coming, so I closed the door, to defend my position, because that was my race to win.
Hamilton saw the opportunity and went for it. He tried to pass on the outside, but Rosberg blocked him. The crash? Inevitable. Now, imagine the mood in the Mercedes garage. They lost both cars before the first lap was even over. But it didn't end there. At the Austrian GP, Rosberg was about to win, even while struggling with brake issues. But on the last lap, Hamilton came flying in. On the long straight up to turn 3, Hamilton went for the outside. As he turned in, Rosberg went straight, and they collided again.
And is he going to come onto the track and touch his teammate? He's now got damage, Nico Rosberg, to his front wing. Bits are carbon fibre are showering the track, and Lewis Hamilton does manage to overtake his teammates, but the damage has been done to the front wing.
The result, Rosberg broke his front wing and dropped to 4th. Hamilton won.
Hamilton takes the Austrian Grand Prix, the 250th Grand Prix win by a British driver.
The Mercedes boss was furious. That crash almost took both cars out of the race. But Hamilton wasn't done with it yet. At the final race of the season in Abu Dhabi, Rosberg came in with a 12-point lead in the championship. Hamilton was leading the race, but started to slow down on purpose, ignoring warnings from his engineer and even technical director Paddy Lowe. The goal? To create chaos behind Rosberg, slow him down, and allow the 3rd and 4th place drivers to catch up. Hamilton wanted Vettel or Verstappen to pass the German, which would make him world champion.
Okay, Lewis really needs to pick up the pace. Need high 44s. Vettel, imminent threat. Okay, Lewis, this is an instruction. We need 45-1 for the win.
I suggest you guys let us race.
This is Paddy. We need you to pick up the pace to win this race. That's an instruction.
Paddy, I'm actually in the lead right now. I'm quite comfortable. Right now, I'm losing the World Championship, so I'm not really bothered if I win or lose this race.
But Rosberg held on.
Lewis Hamilton wins the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Nico Rosberg is 2nd. He takes the championship.
Yes! World champion! Brilliant! Nico, you are world champion.
He crossed the line in 2nd, won the championship by 5 points over Hamilton, and ended the season as world champion. It was beautiful, a story straight out of a movie. But that beautiful rivalry came to an end right after that race. After beating Hamilton, Rosberg simply retired. His former teammate didn't miss the chance to throw some shade, but still said he'd miss him. For some, this rivalry was a modern-day version of the famous battle between Ayrton Senna and Prost. But before we talk about the most iconic crash in Formula One history, we have to talk about one guy, Esteban Ocon, the record holder for crashing into his own teammates. It all started in 2016, when Ocon was just 20 years old and made his F1 debut with Racing Point, now known as Aston Martin. Back then, his teammate was Sergio Perez, and in 2017 alone, the two collided 4 times, including twice in the same race.
Position. Perez gets ahead of Ocon as they come into the left-hand room too. They make contact. Road damage. Others out wide, and the two Force Indians, after fighting each other, have lost the front. And the two Force Indians make contact. Missing a part of his front wing, Ocon there. Once again, touched. Guys, what the...
In 2018, another crash.
Good start for Esteban Ocon. Two Force Indians together again. They're going wheel to wheel. To the water goes Esteban Ocon.
I got hit by Sergio badly.
Of course, not every time it was Ocon's fault. Perez wasn't exactly a saint either, but you'll soon understand why it's easy to say Ocon brings these situations on himself. Years later, the Frenchman raced for Alpine, and once again had issues with his teammate, Fernando Alonso. First, because of the, let's say, aggressive way Ocon defended his position against the Spaniard, even pushing Alonso off the track. But things got worse at the Brazilian GP. During qualifying, this crash happened.
There's another bite at that.
I lost the win, I think, thanks to our friend.
In the end, Alonso was penalized for the incident, even though Ocon clearly slowed down unnecessarily. After that, Alonso threw in the towel for the season, saying his head was already with Aston Martin, the team he had already confirmed for the next year. Oh, and it's worth mentioning that even on different teams, Ocon seemed to hold a grudge. And a year later, once again at the Brazilian GP, he crashed into Alonso all over again. But if you think that was the end of it, you're wrong. After Alonso left, Alpine brought in Gasly. And guess what? Ocon had issues with him too. And of course, he ended up taking Gasly out of a few races. The first crash happened in Melbourne, Australia in 2023.
He's off the road. It's Max Verstappen with the lead. Then it's Hamilton.
Themselves then afterwards.
Big impact into the wall for the two Alpines.
And the following year, at the iconic Monaco Grand Prix, it happened again. Ocon went for it, pulled in front of Gasly, and contact was inevitable.
And as we see the two out. Oh, there's another incident out there then. As two out.
Whether it was his fault or not, the truth is, all of this story made the French driver one of the most disliked on the grid. And speaking of dislike, we have to talk about what happened between Verstappen and Ricciardo in 2018. But hold on, let's rewind a year. In 2017, things were already heating up between the both of them, especially after this crash.
As they touch the two Red Bulls and Ricciardo going wide into turn 2, and there's Carlos Sainz sliding through, and there's big problems for Ricciardo who spins round on turn 3.
If that's who I think it was, yes.
That wreck took Ricciardo out of the race and seriously hurt his championship chances. The team didn't say much, and both drivers decided not to escalate things after the race. But in 2018, things went from bad to worse. It all went down at the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. They were both fighting for a podium. Max was in 4th, Ricciardo right behind him. And during the overtake attempt, this happened.
But he's going to try and dive down. The inside, they have crashed. They've gone into each other. Daniel Ricciardo late braking, couldn't stop in time. Max Verstappen was right in front of him.
Both drivers were forced to retire from the race. Did Max move under braking, or did Ricciardo refuse to lift on purpose?
I don't want to talk about it.
Well, we'll probably never know that. Neither of them said anything too revealing afterward. But years later, the truth came out. It turns out that 2018 was Ricciardo's final season with Red Bull before he made the move to Renault. And according to him, that crash may have been one of the reasons he left the team. Ayrton Senna and Alain Prost had the biggest rivalry in F1 history, and its peak came in 1991. It all started when the young Ayrton Senna joined McLaren in 1988, where the main driver at the time was two-time world champion Alain Prost. At first, their relationship seemed friendly. In interviews, there were compliments, laughs, and even moments where Senna called Prost the greatest driver of his time. But that atmosphere didn't last long. At the Portuguese Grand Prix in Estoril, things started to heat up. Prost decided to force Senna off the track, and Senna got his revenge by squeezing Prost into the pit wall. Senna won the championship that year in 1988, but Prost took the title in the following season. But it was in 1989 that their relationship completely broke down. Things started to unravel at the San Marino Grand Prix. Before the race, the two drivers had a gentleman's agreement not to attack each other at the start, to avoid any damage that could hurt their race chances. After that, they'd be free to battle it out. The problem was that the race had to be restarted because of several crashes, especially this one involving one of the Ferraris.
And, oh heavens above, this is dreadful, this is the...
And on the restart, Senna went all out against the Frenchman and took the lead. To Prost, this was a huge betrayal of trust, since the Brazilian had broken the agreement they had made. But for Senna, the deal only applied to the initial start, and technically, the race had already begun again when they restarted. But something even worse happened at the Japanese Grand Prix. Alain Prost had started in second place, but during the race, he took the lead from Ayrton Senna himself. Of course, the Brazilian wasn't about to let that one slide. He went after Prost aggressively, and then, in a turn, this happened.
And he's going through! Out! Oh my goodness, this is fantastic! They meet! This is what we were fearing might happen during the race.
Alain Prost moved off the ideal racing line to block the space for Senna to pass. And since Senna didn't lift off the throttle, he ended up getting pushed onto the curbs and eventually collided with Prost. He changed the car's nose and managed to win the race. But he was disqualified for cutting the chicane after the crash with Prost. After the chaos, it was Alessandro Nannini who ended up on the top step of the podium, followed by the two Renault drivers. Sometime later, the Brazilian was even fined $100,000 and suspended for 6 months, which led to an easy championship win for Alain Prost. But that only made the tension between them even worse. When asked about it, Senna explained why he didn't back off when there was no room to pass.
I refused to walk away from the fight
It's my nature to go right to the end. That's what I'm going to do.
To be very honest, I mean, I'm quite happy to leave because I think it becomes absolutely impossible to work with Ayrton.
To this day, there are still questions about that crash, but the truth is, something even worse happened the following year. Senna decided to get revenge for losing the 1989 championship and did something extremely dangerous. In 1990, Prost had moved to Ferrari and once again fighting for the title against Senna, who was still with McLaren. The race start was a complete mess. But what decided the race and the championship happened in the very first corner, when Senna did this. The crash took Alain Prost out of the race and out of the title fight, since that was his last chance to overtake Senna in the standings. In the end, Senna won one of the most controversial titles in history. One journalist who was close to the crash said he heard Prost say what he did was despicable. He's a man without honor. Those weren't the only crashes between the two, but that's a story for another video, since they were no longer on the same team by then. But now, what happened between Vettel and Charles Leclerc is unlike anything we've seen so far. The two shared the Ferrari garage for a few years, but it was at the 2019 Brazilian Grand Prix when this happened. It was a simple crash, but fatal for Leclerc's car, knocking him out of the race. The following year at the Styrian Grand Prix, it was Vettel who got the worst of it. Look at the state of his car after that crash. Some say he just tried to overtake where there was no room, while others blame Leclerc. But that wasn't the only time Vettel collided with a teammate. Back when he was still racing for Red Bull, the German went through the worst experience of his career. For years, Sebastian Vettel and Mark Webber shared the Red Bull garage. On the surface, it didn't look like they had big issues, but behind the scenes, it seemed the two just didn't get along. The first clear sign came at the Turkish Grand Prix when the two collided due to pure recklessness from both drivers. On a straight, there was no reason for that crash to happen. It was just one driver trying to overtake and the other defending his position at all costs. But what really shocked people was Vettel's radio message after the crash.
What the f*** are we doing here? What is stupid action? I'm going home. You.
He was furious, and rightly so. But that was just a glimpse of the rivalry between the two, which reached its peak at the 2013 Malaysian Grand Prix with the infamous Multi-21 order, when Vettel did something even worse than crashing into his teammate. If you didn't get that part, don't worry, I'll explain. To summarize it briefly, at the end of the race, Vettel and Webber were fighting for first place, with Webber in front. But since he was on medium tires, Vettel had an advantage and started to push. That's when the Multi-21 order was given. Basically, Red Bull wanted Vettel to slow down, let Webber win, and save his tires, so both cars could finish the race safely. It was a totally reasonable decision, but Vettel just ignored it. He went full attack. And by the smallest margin, really just barely, the two didn't crash and lose the podium altogether. Vettel managed to overtake and win the Malaysian Grand Prix, but at what cost? Webber was so mad that he nearly sideswept Vettel at the end of the race. It really looked like he wanted to crash into his teammate with full force. Look at how tense things were on the podium. In the end, what Vettel did was even worse than crashing into his teammate. He put everything at risk, just because of his pride as a driver. Their friendship was completely shaken after that, and in the end, Webber retired at the end of that season.